Carnival evolved for us from our freedom. Carnival was born out of the abolishment of slave trade. When people were enslaved, the Africans were enslaved, the slave masters, they were not allowed to be drunk, they were not allowed to go on the streets, they were not allowed to be in any public event. But when they became free people, they took to the streets because they had no money to do anything, but they could have danced, and they could have sang, and they could have beat the drum. And that's why Carnival evolved. The same thing with Brazil Carnival, the same thing with New Orleans Carnival. Liverpool Carnival, as Jazz is a rebirth of what was done. It died, but we took it back onto the streets. And a lot of times it's where you take it, if that's the streets it started on, and that's where we go back to. A lot of people don't want you to go back there. Want you to go somewhere else because it's nice. And they want us to go to the city centre in Liverpool and show the city. But Carnival is made for the people. Carnival is not about the city. Carnival is about the people. And for us, we celebrate that. The people in the community take it to the streets. Artistic content. I had a conversation with someone about the visuals that was on the street and how people use the money to create a costume, or actually how they use the money and what they put on the street. Probably you need to look at the artistic content. A lot of carnivals for us have an artistic contract. And because it's carnival, we have artistic contract of what we believe our carnival should be. If it's a free hand carnival where you have a wide range of groups involved, probably you need an artistic content to say, this is what we think carnival should be. And it's an it's a carnival costume contract. And a lot of times it tells you what should be on the streets. There was something about some people just use the money and go to buy clothes. Not necessarily costume, clothes, and put it onto the street. And that is where artistic control comes into play. Do you want it to be where people use the money for the wrong reason and not ready? For us, it's about giving people the opportunity, not only to perform, but also to take part in making and getting involved. And that's where the energy comes into play. So, an artistic content, probably you need to look at contract of how carnival should look on the street. Rethinking the actual day parade, for me, as I said, there was too many spaces when the procession started. I think there was too much performance on the street, stopping points, so there were points where there were like 2 minutes to 3 minutes from one group to the other group. If you're an audience looking at something wherever you are, you want it to be continuing. You don't want to wait every 3 minutes or 2 minutes to see something. So we had that in the beginning, we had that by the mayor's office, and then when we went down by the riverside, we had the actual carnival wasn't that visual because there was so much space, you had so much people all over. One at a time, we had a host of motorbikes in the parade trying to get through because there was a lot of space from them. Too much spacing, so every time we stopped to perform, the space was created. And when we went down to the waterfront, which should be the best visual you should get, because of the water and that area, there was crowds of people in front of each group. So, you may have like 4 groups, but then there's crowds of people, and the group that we were in, I couldn't see the next group, but it was just people in your carnival. Not, and that kind of like, for me, that's why I said sometimes it didn't have that wow factor. When we actually started, we came into Old Street. That was the wow factor, because everybody was jammed in front of the mayor's, and everybody was doing the performance. So you could have actually seen everything at once. There was no people, there was nothing. The audience was on both sides, and you saw it. And that for me is what carnival is about. The ballroom dancers were doing their ballroom dancing, the kids were doing their performances, but everything was continuing. There was no space. But when we left that point, we went down the hill. There were like crowds of people, and we didn't even know where the other carnival group were. So probably you need to look at that element. But as I said earlier on, this is very theatrical carnival. So think about it. That's how we look at it. Music again was not. You need to have music continuing. Probably you need to formulate one major drumming group and stagger it. If you have try and get 200 people in music, 200 drummers drumming the same music, and then split them into 14 and have them throughout the procession. So you have a continuation of music. Because we had highs and lows in terms of the music. Again, there's nothing wrong with the local temple music and stuff, but probably you need to put them together. When I said earlier on about dividing the carnival into different groups, so you have one style of music going on at one space, and then you have drumming, samba drumming at one space. That's how we work it in the UK. So if you have a massive group of drummers, you divide them, so you have a whole set of samba drumming and groups dancing to that. Then you've got the temple music, you've got the ballroom dancing and the line dance, the western line dancing. You split it, so you hear styles of music at point. Not Dolly Parton at one point, temple music, then samba, then as an audience, I'm looking at it as the audience, that's what we saw. So that continuity of what we call carnival wasn't there. That's why I'm saying it's more like a parade. So we saw people kind of performing to direction, not performing because we go on the street and we perform. That's why we said carnival, we take the street, we take over the street. First we perform, we go on the streets and we celebrate. Quantity and quality is the same thing I said about you need to work on your budget and need to decide we're going for this budget, we can create 1,000 costumes or we can create 2,000 costumes of different levels. You need to sit and decide, well, let's up our skill levels and let's develop the work a little more. So instead of doing 2,000 costumes, let's do 1,000 costumes and wow them. That's my quantity and quality. We look at it, that's how we look at it in the UK. And if people don't want to get involved in costume making, you have to have a costume element. If you are calling it a carnival. And for us, that's what carnival is about. You probably need to look at quantity and quality. Carnival timing. All the schools complain about the timing of carnival this year. And everybody says it should be in November or December. I think someone asked the question about marketing. In the UK and in the rest of the world, that's the cheapest way of doing marketing. We have a fixed time for carnival each year. So everybody knows when carnival is happening. It's the end of July, beginning of August, always when our school finishes. Notting Hill Carnival is always at the end of August. Trinidad Carnival is always in February. So we will actually go back to that place, those places, for that reason. So we discussed this the last time, having a fixed time of carnival or date of carnival, fixed in everybody, it becomes a part of everybody's calendar or diary. That in February, that in August, it's carnival in. Then you can go on the World Net. There's a World Net where you can literally put Sanctuary Carnival, it's always in. And that's one of the cheapest way of publicizing your carnival, when people know where carnival is, what day carnival is. So timing, I suppose we had this discussion the last time because some people said carnival kept on, the date keeps on changing. Probably you need to sit and fix. There's a lot of things you need to sit as a group and sit and fix. And this is where we decide carnival should be. And it's working with everybody, not changing when people think it suits them. Remember, it's a cross-section of people, so sitting together and working together is the way forward.